Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Oh no, this movie, it's apparently only 90 minutes long.
This movie, period.
Hey everyone.
Hello everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Almost Heroes.
Almost Heroes.
Starring Matthew Perry.
Mm-hmm.
They're almost famous.
I'd love to have you alone for just 2 minutes.
My hair is getting to you, isn't it? They're almost legends.
I hope Satan himself burns the flesh from your miserable bones!
Chris Farley.
Good God, lady.
Matthew Perry.
Great things are in store for us.
They're almost,
And this is for your own good.
heroes.
They're headed this way!
Let's get
Starring
right
Matthew
into it.
Perry and no one else.
All right. Well, this is, first of all, it's Thursday, which means we have a producer to thank. Big shout out to David Knife Boot Henson. Old Knife Boot. Thank you so much.
Old Knife Boot.
David Knife Boot Henson gave us a choice between two movies. I don't remember what the other one was.
It's fine.
I know.
I think it was Wet Hot American Summer.
It was a good comedy, and it was this. And we were like, well, obviously this.
Yeah.
1998's Almost Heroes, Chris Farley's last starring role. Not his last role.
Not his last role. He's in Dirty Work later the same year.
Yep. Directed by Christopher Guest.
This movie is, yes, not Dirty Work.
Yeah.
Dirty Work is directed by Bob Saget.
Right. So it's all fucked up.
This movie is fascinating. Like, I wrote about it before 100,000 years ago, back when people still gave a shit about comedy on the internet.
Yeah. This is Matthew Perry, Chris Farley, Bokeem Woodbine.
Yes. Who disappears in the final scene. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. Also, his character just plays Matthew Perry's slave.
Yep.
And Matthew Perry is a hero of this movie. So that's something. Eugene Levy.
Yep.
Just doing a thing.
Yeah. No, there's Eugene Levy is playing a French-Canadian trapper, I guess. And then you got fucking Kevin Dunn wandering in there pretending to be a Spanish conquistador, and it's just the scenes they share together are just like dueling of the absurd, probably racist accents.
This is one of those movies where when the credits was rolling, I was like, how homophobic and racist do you suppose this is going to be? And then moments like that, and it was like, my God, this is racist in ways that I didn't anticipate.
Yeah, it was some real unexpected racism.
Yeah. Also narrated by Harry Shearer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but only like for the beginning.
Only for the first 8 seconds, and then the rest of the film is narrated by Matthew Perry.
Yeah.
This movie is a disaster.
It's a disaster.
Like every conceivable thing you could think of. Okay, what were you going to say?
I was looking in behind the scenes because I was like, how did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
You know? Apparently it was, who was it? It was Steve Odenkirk of Kung Pao, Enter the Fist, and Thumbmation fame, who at the time was kind of hot shit. Because you know what he directed?
Yeah, he directed Ace Ventura.
Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. I don't think he directed the first one.
No, I think that's Tom Shadyac, I think is his name.
Yeah, and he's sort of he's one of those career directors and writers.
Yeah,
like he's behind the scenes. So like he has a story credit for Cowboys and Aliens.
Odenkirk or Tom Shadyac?
Odenkirk. And like Evan Almighty, Bruce Almighty, etc. So like he was hot shit with Jim Carrey. So I guess he shared an agent with the writer of this.
The three writers of this.
Yeah, and this became like a really like a chased after script. At one point, Matthew Perry was like their last choice. They wanted Hugh Grant. They wanted Bill Murray. They wanted Hugh Laurie. And then they were like, fine, Matthew Perry.
I guess it's Matthew Perry.
As opposed to then no-name Hugh Laurie. Like, yeah.
Right, at least Matthew Perry was on Friends at this time.
Right. It was also originally an ensemble.
Yes,
movie.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about, at least for part of it.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go into it. What do you know? Tell us.
From what I understand, this movie, one of the writers is named Tom Wolfe, but it's not the Tom Wolfe. That confused the shit out of me for years. I was like, I remember the first time I saw this, and it's like written by Tom Wolfe pops up on the screen. I was like, what the fuck? And then 2 seconds later, it's like directed by Christopher Guest, and I just fly out of my seat.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't handle all of this information. This movie got delayed. It was originally filmed in 96. And it got delayed because of a merger between Turner and Time Warner. So it got pushed back like over a year, to the point where it was scheduled when it was finally like going to come out. Chris Farley had been dead for a while.
For 6 months. It was released 6 months after he was dead. I know that. I know Siskel and Ebert just didn't review it out of respect, because they're like, look, we're not going to have good things to say. You don't need us reviewing.
Well, I
this.
I think Siskel specifically was like forbidden to review the film by Chris Farley's family, because Siskel had been like, one of them, I think it was Siskel, had been particularly ruthless about all of Chris Farley's movies.
Right.
And they're like, we don't need this.
Fair.
And Siskel and Ebert were like, fair enough.
Yeah.
But so they knowing that it was going to be like released as Chris Farley's last starring role, I know that there were like major edits that cut it down to focus on his character. So whereas he wasn't really a lead, he was just like a more prominent character in this ensemble of people. The release version of this movie cut out pretty much everything with the other characters, just to focus on, to try and make it a Chris Farley movie after the fact. They were trying to like reverse engineer it into a Chris Farley movie when it wasn't really that in the first place.
The result is a movie that feels very disjointed at times.
It reminds me a lot of, appropriately, Wagons East.
Oh yeah, very appropriately.
As Wagons East, similarly, is a slapstick screwball frontier comedy, like a period piece comedy. That's also about traveling across the continental United States. And John Candy played the guide in that movie, but he died in the middle of filming. Chris Farley had completed his filming in this movie.
It felt like he hadn't.
It did, but if you notice, the ending is reshot. And the way you can notice it is they're fighting with the conquistadors. Like Matthew Perry's having a sword fight with Kevin Dunn, and then they. Like Chris Farley and the rest of the group comes over the hill, and they're like, the Pacific Ocean's right there. We got to go. Lewis and Clark are almost there. We'll get into what the premise of the movie actually is.
They yada the fuck out of the ending where they're like, it happens so fast.
Yeah, a lot of things in this movie happen very quickly. But so he runs away from his sword fight with Kevin Dunn. She's like, whatever, I've already embarrassed you and revealed that you're wearing a wig. And they run out of the beach, and then it cuts to them running up on the bluffs of, like, I don't know, Northern California, probably.
Yeah, probably.
And Matthew Perry is noticeably about 30 pounds skinnier.
Yeah.
Like, I think this was, like, they must have picked up reshoots right when he was in, like, the middle of a real bad bout of addiction, I think.
Right.
Because he got really, he struggled with that when Friends got super popular, but it's like jarring. He is all of a sudden, like, he's already skinny in most of the movie, but in the ending, he just suddenly becomes like alarmingly skinny.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
What happened in that 5 seconds?
Right. It's like they almost starved to death.
Yeah.
Getting there.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we should probably back up and actually discuss the movie.
Yeah,
What were you going to say? What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, that whole ending. There was a point in this movie where I couldn't identify a villain or like what was going to happen or like arcs because it's just a series of bits. Yeah. For the most part,
it's a series of sketches, and like 98% of them, they have no idea how to end.
Yeah, and there's like bizarre character turns sometimes, and there's scenes that this is why I thought, like I looked it up, and so I knew, but like I thought at first like Chris Farley had died during the filming because they do stuff like the scene where they're at the fancy party at the beginning. And he chugs the whiskey, and then they just goes like, ah! And then they just cut to the next day, and then they just say what happened. And it was like, that's weird, right? That's like they didn't film a bit.
It was probably, judging by what we know about the production, that scene probably had a lot of bits with the other characters. And they just cut it because they're like, well, this has to be Farley. This has to be a Farley movie.
It was like a background thing, you know? So they're like, no, he embarrassed himself. It's all about him. Yeah, let's get into this. This is so Matthew Perry is like a guy.
Yeah, he's a guy.
And he wants to go across the country.
Yeah, he's a fancy gentleman. He's trying to put together an expedition to reach the Pacific Ocean, specifically to beat Lewis and Clark because they keep one-upping him.
Right. And so he... and then we got Chris Farley, who's about to be executed. We don't really learn why, do we?
No, they tell you why.
Do they?
Yeah, it's because he got drunk and then embarrassed an officer.
Oh, okay. So they're going to hang him, and he's like, nope,
it's not a good reason. I'm just saying they do give you a reason.
Yeah, and they're like, they barely establish his character. They first show him as he's getting hung, and then we just have to be told he's a good tracker. I don't know why I'm gonna be breaking you're really
breaking it down. He hires Chris Farley to help him get across the country.
It was kind of jarring, to be honest, because even in dumb comedies, they usually show like that they're like, oh, they're the best. You know,
he has a couple
of scene where they're like doing a thing, a tracking, but he never is helpful. He's not a tracker.
He is at a couple of points, but it's like way later in the movie,
right?
And they don't they just kind of really pass over, like when they go through the rapids and they see that like Lewis and Clark have portaged and they're going to carry their canoes over the mountain rather than ride the river through it, like. Chris Farley's character correctly says, they're doing that because the river's dangerous. We should probably do the same thing. So there's like a couple of moments where he demonstrates that he knows what he's talking about, but they come like way later. We don't know anything about this guy when we first meet him.
But for the most part, he's just a big chuckle fuck. Like he's a Chris Farley.
He's Chris Farley, yeah.
By the way, is he always borderline Jack Nicholson or just this movie?
In what way?
Like the way he performs lines. There's it's borderline Jack Nicholson sometimes.
A little bit, yeah.
In this movie, at least. And I had never noticed that before. It's I don't know how else to explain it. It feels like he's turning into Jack Nicholson in a couple scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a criticism. I just never noticed that before. So yeah, they go on their expedition and they hire Eugene Levy as a Frenchman?
A French-Canadian.
French-Canadian.
Yeah.
And his hot Native American wife, who I do not believe is played by a Native American woman. I'm not certain there.
I'm not sure either. This being the mid-90s, I wouldn't expect it. But
well, I know that she is... shit. Oh, fuck. She's Highlander's wife.
In what?
In Highlander, she's Highlander's wife.
In the original Highlander? No, she's not.
Yes. I'm pretty sure.
There's no way she's the original in the original Highlander.
I'm looking this up. I'm looking this right up. Or maybe it's the daughter. I saw that she was a MacLeod in Highlander. This is terrible podcast.
It's in Highlander. It's in year 2000's Highlander Endgame, you jackass.
Oh, so what is she in that one?
Somebody named Kate MacLeod / Faith. I don't remember that character.
I got the wrong Highlander.
Yeah. by almost 20 years.
Look, I don't know time, man.
That's okay. I can't remember who this character is in this film, so that's fine.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, and so he's just like, nobody touched my fucking wife,
Mm-hmm.
who now I'm looking up was born in Brooklyn.
Sure. I mean, this character might have been as well.
That's true. Excuse me.
No.
Excuse. No, she is not Native American. Sorry, I needed to solve that. So that's a bit, and then I forget how she gets involved romantically with Matthew Perry, but that happens.
They just make eyes at each other a couple of times. That's
and then
it.
she just drops Eugene Levy.
Well, I mean, Eugene Levy's a scumbag in this movie.
Right,
so.
right. And then it's a series of bits as they go across the country.
Quite literally, it's a road trip movie. It's plenty of other films have done this. Like, you could make the same comment about Vacation. It's just a series of sketches.
Right.
But
it's just not good sketches.
That's the thing that I wanted to really hit on. Like, even though this thing was clearly cut to shit to the point where it's barely coherent, I don't think there ever was a good version of this movie because the writing is fundamentally not very good.
Also, here's the thing. Vacation has structure. There's arcs of the characters. The characters have goals and wants that are going throughout.
No, I'm just talking about in terms of a plot.
Yeah.
In terms of what actually happens. It's just a series of sketches in Vacation.
For sure. This is like more disjointed though because
I think they cut all that stuff out. So we just have the jokes, but like there's a scene later on where like it's after they go over the rapids and like Farley and Perry are like at each other's throats and Farley quits the expedition.
That's the part.
They haven't argued at all up until that point.
That's the part that's really fucking jarring.
Yeah.
They get out of the rapids and he's like, I'm fucking sick of you,
I'm
man.
sick of this dandy. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's like, you guys haven't even raised your voices at each other this entire movie.
As far as I can tell, you guys are getting along just fine.
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird, that one moment. Very disjointed. I'm trying to think of any jokes that I liked.
Oh, I can.
I didn't laugh.
Oh.
But there were jokes that I was like, I appreciate that. I liked the...
I'm reading something from the producer, who is Denise Denovi. Again, there's so many people involved in this movie. We're like, really? This movie?
Yeah.
Where she said, like, the script read better than it performed, which I can totally see. Like, you can, if you listen to the lines, you're like, oh, this feel like I could see how you would read this on the page and be like, oh, that's a really good joke.
I liked when he says something about him regurgitating into a harpsichord.
Mm-hmm.
That was a solid line. I liked the eagle gag.
I was about to say, that's the only thing I remembered about this movie was the eagle gag. I lose my shit at that scene.
Wait, sorry, which eagle gag?
The entirety of it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because the bit is that Matthew Perry suddenly gets sick. And again, it feels really disjointed.
It's very abrupt, yeah. And
suddenly he's sick and they're like, we need you to go.
I suspect that's why Matthew Perry randomly starts narrating the movie about halfway through. And it's only a couple of scenes, like a couple of transitions he narrates.
Yes, because they needed...
One of the biggest red flags of a movie to know whether or not it's been cut to shit or reshot is if narration suddenly appears in only a few scenes and doesn't really seem to serve much of a purpose.
Yes, when someone has to walk into the movie and go, so this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Or that means it's a Tarantino film.
Or
Tarantino literally steps in to explain what's going on.
Well, I mean, that's a clear stylistic thing.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is, or it's the motion picture Twilight, which is just fundamentally bad at its core.
Yes. Yeah, where it's like, we planned it out. It's just bad.
Like, no, we planned for this narration. It's just dumb and doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't give us any additional insight into the character.
Right. So Matthew Perry's sick.
Yeah.
And the Native American lady is like, you need to go get an eagle's egg to save him. But there's no eagles up here in the mountains. You have to go down. So Chris Farley walks down the side of the mountain.
Real quick. this is another quick line we get that demonstrates he actually knows what he's doing. Is she says she needs an eagle egg, and he's like, well, the last animals we saw were down below the snow line. There's like little bits of that they keep throwing into the movie where it's like, no, he knows what he's doing, but we don't get any of this, you understand, until like almost an hour into the movie.
Oh yeah, and it's still not like that much.
It's
like,
not much, but it's like it's
his knowledge of nature is like the equivalent. It feels like of anybody at that time. You know,
he feels
anybody has to deal with nature,
right? He feels like he has like the base knowledge of like a person in the 21st century.
Yeah,
just happens to be in the 19th century.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just it's clear the character was written to not be a buffoon, at least not in that way,
or not be like. I mean, it's Chris Farley, so
he's always going to be
right.
buffoonish.
They
but
made him a buffoon. Like they probably cast Chris Farley, and then they're like, okay, well now this character is going to be more of a buffoon, I guess.
Yeah, from what I've read, he was the first person cast, so the project kind of sort of started to be molded around him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
so he goes down and he finds an eagle's nest on the top of a tree, and it's good comedy. This is good comedy.
It's a great bit. It really is.
He climbs the nest. He gets the egg. The eagle attacks him, and he punches the eagle. And it's, if you like watching someone punch a stuffed bird, it's funny. And he falls out of the tree. And then he's really hungry and decides, fuck it, I'll eat the egg.
Yeah.
So he eats the egg instead. And so then he climbs the eagles, the tree again to the nest where there's 2 more eggs.
Right. They very clearly show us there's 3 eggs when he first gets up there.
And of course, same thing happens. He gets fucked up by the eagle.
It's what really... this element I want to point out real quick because we're on it. This part of the joke, this is like what makes me laugh the hardest about this joke is every time the eagle attacks him, they play the exact same shot of an eagle swooping in with the exact same screeing sound effect.
Yeah,
it's the same footage of an eagle swooping in.
It's good comedy because they were like, we can only afford this, but let's make it work for us.
It's Warner Brothers. They could have afforded. I mean, this movie had a budget of $30 million. They picked it because it's funny.
It is very funny.
Like it's Christopher Guest. He knows a little bit about what he's doing.
Oh yeah. It's still making your budget work for you.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you get the same piece of stock footage. He's like, what's funny is if we play the exact same shot every single time the eagle shows up.
So he gets attacked again. He lands on the ground. He's hungry again. This time he hunts a boar, and so he makes bacon. But you know what goes good with bacon?
And he's just egg. Like eyeing the egg. It's such a fucking good bit.
Yeah. And then he once again climbs the tree, gets the last egg, doesn't eat it, brings it back. The Native American woman cracks the egg open, discards the innards, and he's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I just need the shell."
Yeah.
And that's the final punchline on that. It's just structurally, it's a joke. It's a good joke.
Just his behavior up in the nest keeps escalating, and it's really funny. Like the last time, he's like looking around. He's like, "All right, where are you? Where are you?"
Yeah.
Like, because he knows the eagle's gonna come.
And they do a callback where at the end he has to go down this hill.
Yep.
So he climbs down this rocky hill, and sure enough, there's another eagle's nest. This goes in a direction that I did not expect.
No.
Because he then rides the eagle to the ocean, or he hangs off the eagle, and then it drops him in the ocean.
Feet. It drops him in the ocean after it shits in his face.
Yes.
It's like...
I do like...
Yeah.
I like the ending bit of this, is that he plants the flag and everybody's just down there with him, like, "You did it." And he's like, "How'd you guys get down?" And they're like, "Oh, we actually found like another, a trail."
A trail. They even carved steps into the side. It's very nice.
Yeah. Because it's, again, it's sort of them riding around like kind of a hole. Like I feel like it's one of those things where they're like, "We need them down there. Let's make it a gag."
You might as well make a gag out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do like that Lewis and Clark's expedition arrive and see them, and they all just like shrug and turn around and go
yes.
home. See, that's my thing with this movie, is like this movie makes me like genuinely laugh like once every 5 minutes or so, which is
really?
it's still not a great track record for a movie. There's a lot of like
once every 5 minutes is great. I think
for a movie like this where it's completely zany, that means a lot of jokes aren't landing.
Yes, for me it was more like me not laughing and just going, "That's a good joke." I liked when he tries to knock him out heroically. You know that scene in most movies where someone is like, it's too dangerous for you, but you're insisting, so I knock you out. Instead, he just hits him and he doesn't knock him out. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that'd knock you out."
Yeah.
I thought that was fun. I like the shit pudding story.
Yeah, the dentist.
Oh, yeah, the dentist.
The dentist is fun.
I really like the corn gag. Conceptually, I don't think the execution was perfect. Where they're running the gauntlet and they have to, like, the first thing is hot coals and they're like doing these trials and then one of them's just walk over wet corn.
Yeah, it's like corn salsa.
Yeah, I liked the idea because everybody's just like, wait, why did we do the corn?
Right. Because like not even they realize it until they're halfway through the corn pit. And they're like, wait a minute.
And then everybody's like, wait, it's just corn.
Everybody's just caught up in the moment.
Yeah. I don't think the execution worked.
No, it's a lot. This movie is paced very badly. And I think, obviously a lot of that has to do with the fact that it was cut to shit. But then there's also comedy beats that are paced very strangely. And this is one of them.
I think it's a lot of comedians who, for the most part, I respect and have made me laugh.
There's a lot of good people in this movie.
Yeah, even Matthew Perry has made me laugh once.
He makes me laugh in this movie a couple of times. Like he has comedic instinct.
Yeah, but they're all kind of mixed wrong. It's like, I like mustard and I like iced tea, but I don't want to drink them together.
Right.
It feels like nothing. It's not quite grooving, and part of it's the editing, like as we've mentioned again and again, it was cut to shit, but some of it's just these people don't seem to groove well.
Yeah, I kept
Matthew
thinking
Perry
go ahead.
Matthew Perry doesn't feel like he belongs in a period piece with these other, it's not the same. He's got that like real sarcastic bullshit.
I thought Farley was the weirder fit than him.
I think they're both weird because both together too. I guess they're trying to do like a David Spade thing, where Matthew Perry's kind of the sarcastic guy and Chris Farley's
he's
chuckle fuck.
Yeah, he's not super sarcastic in this. He's mostly just fancy.
Yeah.
And like disdainful of like their oafish behavior. He's not really being a Spade character, but like the foil aspect is kind of the same. It's the Odd Couple.
Yeah, and I can't stress enough that he has a slave.
He sure does, and they call it out.
They call it out. This is the wild thing about that, because it's Bokeem Woodbine, and he's just sitting there in the background, and he doesn't have many lines, and it's just like, this is weird. And he's always like serving him, and it's like, that sure seems like he has a slave, and we're supposed to be like thinking this guy's a heroic character. And then near the end, they finally do a joke about it, where they're like, when at the river, they're like, Chris Farley's like, I hate this guy who's with me. And then he's like, well, I'm your slave, so yeah, I'm with him. Like, that's the gag is like, I hate you.
Yeah.
And then he goes with Chris Farley, and that's the only time they mention it. And
no, they do one other time when they camp for the first time, and Matthew Perry's taking a bath, and Bokeem Woodbine is pouring the hot water in there, and Matthew Perry starts complaining about how the hot water in Virginia isn't as good as it is back in England or someplace. And then Bokeem Woodbine's like, well, I wouldn't know anything about that. I just washed myself in the cold-ass river.
Right, yeah.
And like Matthew Perry doesn't even hear it. He's just like, I think I'll wear my fancy robe tonight.
Right, and like, if you're making a movie like this, you kind of should make him the villain. Because this is another big problem with this movie. Nobody's likable. It's just I guess Chris Farley's likable because he's Chris Farley.
Yeah.
But Matthew Perry, who's carrying half the movie, is not a likable character.
No.
And to couple it with him being like Matthew Perry, it makes him like a shit. It works really well for a villain, but like,
right, he should. Yeah, it's a weird. Like, I get the instinct to go and, well, we can't just Like if he's gonna have, I don't know, if you're gonna make the fact that he owns a person a joke, then he kind of needs to have some kind of, he needs to be villainous or have some kind of comeuppance related to that.
And it's probably because they cut out so much.
I'm
Maybe
sure it
he has
is.
an arc.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, he's no different than at the start of the movie.
Also, Bokeem
except that
Woodbine
he
just
wants to-
disappears in the ending.
He really does. And then Matthew Perry is just like, let's keep exploring. And everybody goes, yay. And the movie ends. And there's no arcs. And they give him the sex prize. They're like, yeah, and this lady is randomly into him, even though the only thing we know about him is he's snooty and kind of like shitty and has a slave.
Yeah. He's
weird.
he's snooty, he's on a mission to fulfill his own ego, and he owns a slave.
Yeah.
It's
He's
like,
fighting.
wow, this guy
Yeah.
sucks.
He's fighting villain Kevin Dunn.
Yeah.
Who plays Hidalgo, and it's just like my brain hurts like with all of this, because it's just like, yeah, they're both kind of shitty, and it felt like Kevin Dunn wasn't originally the villain. Did you get that impression? Like he was just one more bit they encounter, but
I think he was one more bit, and they just sort of restructured the movie so that he's like the last villain they have to overcome.
Yeah, because again, this needs more structure. Even if they're trying to do a series of bits,
it needs more. Yeah,
it needs like a villain. It needs something to overcome at the end, and it feels like it's just he makes fun of Kevin Dunn, and then they just walk away from him.
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, it's very, very disjointed and weird.
Yeah. And we mentioned it before, but Bokeem Woodbine literally disappears in the ending. They did not have him for the reshoot.
Yeah, he did not want to come back.
So in that last scene on the beach, his character is just gone.
Yeah. In the plot, I guess they abandoned him.
Sure.
Yeah. They're like, we just forgot about this guy. What happens to Eugene Levy?
He runs away.
Okay. There's a lot of that, too. There's a lot of, and then the bad guy just goes away.
Yeah, he just leaves the movie. He departs the film.
Does he get captured by Kevin Dunn? Why does he?
He gets press ganged by Kevin Dunn, basically. Like he approaches him in the tavern, and he's like, "Your wife/property is very attractive," and he's like, "Thank you." And he's like, "You should join my team because we share everything, including wives/property wives." And Eugene Levy's like, "Oh, what happens if I don't join your group?" And he's like, "Then we kill you." And he's like, "Okay, I join your group."
You're right. That is what happens.
That is exactly what happens.
Also, you're not exaggerating the impression.
No, that is. I mean, yeah, he's Eugene Levy, so he's pulling it off better than I am, but he's still not really pulling it off.
No. That's so weird because his whole character is, if anybody touches my wife, I'll kill them. And then that never really goes anywhere.
I mean, he bites the one dude's ear off, but...
Right, and that's setting up Matthew Perry gets romantically involved with her. So it's like, oh no, and then nothing happens there. She's just with Matthew Perry and not with him. And when he joins that group, like, she doesn't go with him. It was one of those things where I thought I had missed something, but now that you described the scene, I'm like, no, I did see that.
No, that is all that happened.
Yeah, I just thought something else had happened.
No, your brain wouldn't allow that. It's like, nope, surely there's some information we didn't get.
Yeah, but no, he just approaches him in that bar and then just says, join my group. Also, like, he seems like relatively okay with joining it, even though, again, his pitch is we share wives, and his character's like, nobody touch or look at my wife. So you'd think he'd be more upset. He's just a caricature throughout. Again, it's maybe because they cut the scenes or what, but most of these characters are just bits. You don't really get any sense of who they are, and they're very inconsistent and weird.
Yeah.
And disjointed. So yeah, guessing that has to do with the editing.
I'm sure that's part of it. And then also, again, this film is not well written. Like, it's clear from the parts that are here that it's just like, oh, this is...
It's not well written, but I don't know.
Every level of this is bad.
Yeah, because it's also most of the scenes aren't particularly well performed.
Nope, or well shot, well constructed. Like, every part of this movie fails.
And yet it's Christopher Guest and Chris Farley.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What a fucking disaster.
It really is, yeah.
Is this a Leslie Nielsen, Mel Brooks situation where it's just like you get two comedic geniuses and it for some reason it just doesn't work? Like Chris Farley isn't doing a Christopher Guest performance.
Mm-mm.
He's just doing Chris Farley.
Yeah.
Matthew Perry is just being Matthew Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Guest, I'm guessing, lost passion for this movie at some point in the production because it doesn't feel like anything amazing in terms of directing. Like you said, it's not well directed.
Nope.
It's just a lot of talented people being like, we'll do better next time.
Making something bad. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just bad.
Yeah, it is. It's just bad. It's just weird and bad. And it's almost Heroes. Oh, man. How many times have you seen this, Tom?
Probably 3 times.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned at the top of this, its 90-minute movie did not feel 90 minutes. Felt way longer than 90 minutes.
It did. It's another time vortex.
It really was. I watched this at noon. And I was like, usually, like, a lot of these movies I'll watch early in the day because I'm a little more tired. And it's like you can sort of accept your fate more when you're watching it. You can sort of be like, you know what, I'll have another cup of coffee and relax and just let it happen. And this time it was like, I need to get the fuck out of this room. I need this to end. Even though it had, moments that I was like, I get that why that's supposed to be funny. There's some good falls in it. Matthew Perry's character, who I don't think it's Matthew Perry at the time, falling out of that carriage.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a good fall.
Solid one. Yeah.
Yeah. There's talent here.
Yeah.
It just didn't amount to anything good.
There's a lot of talent in this movie. It's just the movie itself is bad.
It's just a big weird fart.
Yeah. Just a wet fart slapping down on a hot pavement.
Yeah. Movie's very loud. It's got the scene from Annihilation, but with the bear.
Yeah?
It's got a good bear scene. Drags a guy off.
Sure does.
Yeah. That's neat, right?
Yeah. Not a fake bear.
Not a fake bear. That was probably the only bear.
They went
right?
out. They went all out on that bear.
I assume it's only bear. It's Bart the bear.
I don't know. I don't know if Bart was still doing movies at this point. I think he was, because I think The Edge was 97.
Yeah. Bart the Bear in The Edge, Great Outdoors. I'm looking him up. Bart the Bear's last film was Meet the Deedles.
Sure.
Was not in this movie.
Ah, yeah. It's a different bear.
It's a different bear. That's wild. Bart the Bear was also in 12 Monkeys as Bear. Commonly plays the character named Bear or the Bear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is this anything?
I mean, listen, he knew what he was good at.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't afraid to be typecast.
It didn't look like Bart the Bear, honestly. But now I'm curious what the bear is, who played the bear, because, like, again, only has so many bears.
Mm-hmm.
They have a credit for the bald eagle, Val Crawford. I don't think that's the name of the eagle, but I want it to be.
It is. Don't say anything else. That's in my mind. That that eagle's name is Val Crawford.
That stock footage eagle, Val Crawford. Yeah. Only credit for Val Crawford. It's the eagle. So yeah, you never know. Is that it? Are we done?
I don't know what
Any
else
other
to
thoughts
say,
about
man.
Almost Heroes? I don't know. Now I'm just looking at behind the scenes. Like, is there anything interesting here? Turns out there isn't.
Probably not.
This movie, I can't recommend this movie to anybody. I can't say I will watch this movie ever again.
No, I watched it once voluntarily. Well, I watched it once just as a person watching a movie. The other 2 times I've seen it are specifically for work.
Right. Immediately after watching it, Amazon was like, well, if you liked this, I guess you should watch Gone Fishin'. That's the type of movie this is.
Yeah.
It's a real Gone Fishin' type movie.
It's a real Gone Fishin'.
Where the only reason to watch it is that you've been made to in a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's one of those things where you're like, I know that movie's bad and I always see it, I wanna crack open this nut and see what's in it.
It's time for me to finally experience how bad this film truly is.
Because there are movies like that where it's like the Gone Fishing was one of them, where it's like I always see it, I know it's mediocre and bad. Why ever watch it? And it's like, but aren't you a little bit curious? Don't you kind of want to know?
You kind of want to know
what they thought was a movie. And it's always painful, much like Almost Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's my final thought.
There are a few things worse than a bad comedy.
Yeah, and the thing is that you're always curious. Like a movie like this, I was curious because I was like, maybe it's batshit.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that it's the opposite. What makes a bad comedy so bad
is boring.
Is that there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing remarkable.
Latch on to. Yeah,
it's just jokes that don't work.
Exactly, and it's watching a comedian. I can't even say it's watching a comedian bomb. But it's close to that. Because like sometimes a comic will, it happens. You bomb even if your jokes are good, and it's just sometimes it's the crowd's just not into it, or another number of things. But it's like I imagine it's like watching Gutfeld, where it's like you're watching somebody bomb, and also the jokes are obviously bad.
I don't know. I love Gutfeld. Gutfeld is like comedic genius that they don't realize they're doing. Like it's
right. It's
funny.
Like The Room.
Yeah, like most times I watch Gutfeld, and I will watch Gutfeld. Mm-hmm. It's like silence for the first minute of watching, and then I just start laughing uncontrollably.
Mm-hmm.
Not at the jokes, but at just the absurdity of the situation.
At just the fact of Gutfeld's existence.
Yeah, for me, this is like watching like a Comedy Central roast where they have the stunt guest go up and do jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always like awkward, and like it's like watching The Situation do jokes on the Comedy Central roast of, I believe, Donald Trump.
Sure, probably.
It's like that abyss of sadness.
Why wouldn't it be that thing?
Where it's like sucking the comedy out of you when you watch it. Like it's like a Dementor in Harry Potter. When a Dementor in Harry Potter shows up, I imagine they just see the movie Almost Heroes. When it sucks the life out of them, and they're like, I felt like I'd never feel happy again.
Yeah, that's
like
just the only thing. The only thing you can see is that film.
It's the
as
movie
the Dementors
almost
drain you. Like Sirius Black was stuck in fucking Azkaban, being forced to watch Almost Heroes over and over again
on a loop. Yeah,
that's why he's screaming in his fucking wanted poster. It's because he's like, no,
exactly.
I don't make me watch Almost Heroes. The movie's terrible. You don't understand.
Exactly.
Have you seen it?
Yeah. And yet I'm not mad at this movie either. This is a movie that if someone was like, I like it, I'm like, sure. Good for you.
Like I said, because there are parts of this movie that make me laugh.
Right. And it's talented people making it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, we know what this is. History has been very accurate, to this movie. It's an 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's like, yep.
Yeah, no, we don't. This is not one that needs to be reevaluated. This wasn't one that was like misunderstood in its time. It was understood perfectly in its time.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That's that.
Yeah.
We can check off Almost Heroes.
Yeah.
Off our giant list. Is anybody keeping a list of these?
We probably are somewhere.
I mean, technically speaking, you just look at our podcasts and that's a list.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the answer. Hey, thanks to David Knifeboot Henson.
Hey, thanks
for doing this. I'm kind of scared to know your opinion of it because you paired it with Wet Hot American Summer, a great movie, a great comedy, and I hope you weren't like, here's two amazing comedies for you. You
guys aren't even going to believe this.
Take your pick. Yeah. And thanks to us for picking this. I'm glad, I've seen Wet Hot American Summer tons of times.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw Almost Heroes, so I guess...
Now you have.
Yeah, in a way I grew. And thank you, Tom.
Yeah. No, thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
I'm glad you were here.
Yeah, me too.
We should probably tell him something.
I guess. This was done through our Patreon. And if you're interested, you can go to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. on there we have exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. You guys just closed out the Zack Snyder Justice League.
I know. I think we did something like 8 hours on it.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
That's
man.
gross and stupid and weird. Why the fuck did we do that?
Yeah, I'm there for an hour 40 of it.
You sure are. I'm glad you came in at the end to make the last 30 minutes of the film last 2 hours.
Exactly. You're welcome. Happy to be there. We also have a shared podcast with Small Beans called, what is it called? Futurama, The Next Generation?
Something like that. Star Trek, The Next Futurama, something like that.
I should probably know this. It's co-hosted by myself and Michael Swaim.
Mm-hmm.
We just recorded our second episode, which will be going up on our Patreon.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, that will be behind our paywall, which is, once again, $5 a month for 3 goddamn podcasts.
You got to get on the other side of this motherfucking wall, people.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
And while you're over there, check out a store. We have a store, tpublic.com/stores/gamefullyunemployed, where you get t-shirts, masks, mugs, stickers, posters, all kinds of things. So check that out.
Yeah,
maybe we'll start selling eagle eggs. I don't know.
God, like real eagle eggs.
What was his name? Van Carlson?
It's Vic something.
It was 100 years ago. It's fine.
Val Crawford.
Val
Crawford.
Yeah.
Famous eagle.
That's a
Val
perfect.
Crawford.
I'm writing that down. That's a perfect name for an eagle.
Yes, if I ever get an eagle,
Val.
I'm naming it that.
Crawford. That's the eagle's name.